The Observer's Dilemma. Zarek's crystalline appendages trembled as they reviewed the latest data stream from Earth. After 3 centuries of observation, the humans had done something unprecedented, something that shouldn't have been possible. The observation pod's interior surfaces reflected their agitation, shifting from calm azure to a disturbed vermilion. "Replay sequence," they commanded, their voice a melodic whisper in the confined space. The holographic display materialized again, showing the humans' Mars research facility. The footage came from one of thousands of quantum observers scattered throughout the solar system, invisible to human detection methods. The scene played out exactly as before. A team of researchers gathered around what the humans had dubbed the Martian anomaly, an artifact that Zarek's people had been searching for across 12 galaxies and over 50,000 years. The humans had found it by accident during what they called their Mars sample return mission, and now, impossibly, they were beginning to understand it. Biological authentication required for emergency transmission to the Council, Zarak announced, pressing one crystalline appendage against the authentication panel. The pod's interior swirled with patterns of light as it verified their identity. "Proceed with emergency transmission," the pod's AI confirmed. To the High Council of Galactic Anthropological Studies, Zarak began, their crystalline form pulsing with urgency. "I must report a Class 1 deviation from expected evolutionary patterns in species 7-42-9. Designation: humans. They have not only located Artifact 01, but they are achieving comprehension rates that exceed all known precedents." Zarak paused, knowing their next words would send shockwaves through the Council. They are succeeding where the precursors failed. The humans had approached the artifact not with reverence or careful theoretical analysis, but with what they called reverse engineering, a concept that had no direct translation in any of the Council's registered languages. They took things apart to understand them, an approach that would have been considered sacrilege by most spacefaring civilizations. The observation pod's displays showed multiple angles of the human research team. Dr. Sarah Chen, the project lead, was arguing with her colleague, Dr. James Morrison. Their thermal signatures indicated elevated stress levels, but their body language suggested excitement rather than fear. "The quantum entanglement patterns are unlike anything we've seen," Chen was saying, her hands moving animatedly. "It's not just storing information, it's processing it in a way that defies our understanding of causality." "That's because you're thinking linearly," Morrison countered, pulling up a holographic model. "Look at the pattern distribution when we apply the chaos theory algorithms. It's not random, it's fractal." Zarak had watched this exchange 17 times now, and each viewing only increased their concern. The humans weren't just studying the artifact, they were innovating based on its principles. In 3 months, they had achieved insights that had eluded the Council's finest minds for millennia. The pod's communication system chimed, indicating an incoming Council response. The holographic seal of the High Council materialized, its ancient symbols rotating slowly in the air. "Observer Zarak." The Council's collective voice resonated through the pod. "Your report has been reviewed with grave concern. The human achievement rate exceeds all known parameters. We are dispatching a first contact team immediately." Zarak's form flickered with alarm. "Honorable Council, I must object. The humans are not ready for contact. Their society remains fractured, their technologies inconsistent. They still wage war among themselves." "Precisely," the Council responded. "We cannot risk them developing Artifact 01's capabilities independently. The consequences could be catastrophic." But Zarak knew there was more to it. Over 3 centuries, they had watched humanity evolve, adapt, and overcome challenges that should have destroyed them. Unlike other species that developed linearly, humans seem to advance in quantum leaps, often triggered by their greatest crisis. "Request permission to submit additional context," Zarak ventured. "Granted." The humans' approach to the artifact reveals something unprecedented in our records. They are not merely attempting to understand it, they are attempting to improve upon it. Their scientific methodology combines rigorous analysis with what they call intuitive leaps. They embrace failure as a learning tool, a concept that directly contradicts our traditional understanding of scientific progress. The council was silent for several moments, an unusual occurrence that made Zarek's crystalline structure vibrate with anxiety. "Elaborate," the council finally commanded. Zarek directed their sensors toward another part of the Mars facility, where a younger researcher was running unauthorized experiments on a small fragment of the artifact. According to facility protocols, such tests were forbidden without multiple layers of approval. Yet this human, Dr. Maya Patel, according to their records, was working alone during the facility's rest cycle. "Observe," Zarak transmitted. "This human is violating their own safety protocols, risking personal harm to test a theory. Our predictive models would classify this as deviant behavior, yet such actions have led to approximately 43% of their major breakthroughs." The pod's displays showed Dr. Patel connecting the artifact fragment to what appeared to be a modified quantum computer of human design. The combination should have been impossible. The technological gap was too vast. Yet as Zarak and the council watched, the hybrid system sparked to life. "Impossible." The council's voice carried a tone Zarak had never heard before. The artifact's quantum matrix should have rejected any attempt at integration with such primitive technology. Yet it didn't. Zarak responded. "The humans have achieved this impossible integration multiple times now, using different methods each time. They call it hacking, another concept that defies direct translation." The council's next words came slowly, weighted with the gravity of millennia of observation. "The humans are not following any known pattern of technological development. They are not merely discovering, they are creating. This changes everything." Zarek's form pulsed with relief at the council's understanding, but that relief was short-lived. "We must proceed with immediate contact," the council declared, but not as planned. "Observer Zarak, you will reveal yourself to the human research team. Your centuries of observation make you uniquely qualified to handle this interaction." "But the protocols," Zarak began. "No longer apply," the council interrupted. "The humans have forced us to adapt. They must be integrated into the galactic community before they fully unlock the artifact's capabilities. The consequences of allowing them to develop independently are too severe to contemplate." As the council's transmission ended, Zarak turned their attention back to the Mars facility. Dr. Patel was still working, her modified quantum computer now displaying patterns that shouldn't have been possible for human technology to detect. On another screen, Dr. Chen and Dr. Morrison had moved from theoretical discussion to practical application, their hands flying over holographic interfaces as they tested new hypotheses. Zarek's form shifted through a spectrum of colors as they contemplated their next move. In 3 centuries of observation, they had developed what humans might call an attachment to these beings. Their chaos, their creativity, their seemingly illogical approaches that somehow yielded revolutionary results, all of it had transformed Zarek's understanding of intelligence itself. The observation pod systems began reconfiguring for first contact protocols, its surfaces rippling with new patterns. Zarak watched as Dr. Patel achieved another impossible breakthrough, her unauthorized experiment yielding data that would have taken the council's scientists centuries to discover. "Initial contact sequence initiating," the pod's AI announced, preparing for manifestation. As the pod systems hummed to life, Zarak made a decision that would alter the course of galactic history. They would follow the council's orders and reveal themselves to the humans, but not before ensuring that Dr. Patel's breakthrough was securely recorded and transmitted to a private database. The humans deserved to retain ownership of their innovations, even if those innovations terrify the galaxy's oldest civilizations. The pod's exterior began to shift from its quantum-cloaked state to visible matter, its crystalline structure catching the light of Mars' distant sun. In the facility below, Alarms began to sound as human sensors detected something that shouldn't have been possible, a structure materializing from seemingly empty space. The time for observation was over. The age of interaction was about to begin, and nothing in Zarek's centuries of study had prepared them for what would come next. As they prepared for descent, they reflected on an inhuman phrase they had always found particularly apt. May you live in interesting times. The humans, it seemed, were about to make times very interesting indeed. Convergence Protocol. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had never hosted a species quite like humans before. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the center of the vast crystalline amphitheater, surrounded by representatives from over 300 civilizations. Some were energy beings contained in elaborate vessels, others were biological entities that defy her understanding of possible life forms. Yet all of them were focused intently on the holographic display hovering above her head. As you can see, she continued, her voice steady despite the pressure, the quantum signatures we've detected at the edge of the Carina Nebula match the temporal distortions predicted by the artifact's base code. The void swimmers aren't just approaching, they're accelerating. A ripple of electromagnetic disturbances swept through the chamber as various species communicated their distress. The Melodixians, floating clouds of conscious plasma, pulsed with particularly violent bursts of energy. Impossible, declared Ambassador Kittal of the Silicon Collective, their crystalline form vibrating with disagreement. The containment protocols established by the precursors have maintained stability for millions of years. There must be an error in your analysis. Sarah fought back a smile. After 6 months of interaction with the galactic community, she'd grown accustomed to their reflexive dismissal of human insights. With respect, Ambassador, I invite you to examine our raw data. The containment protocols aren't failing. They're being systematically dismantled. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of protests, warnings, and demands for clarification. Above them all, the voice of High Counselor Zarak, whom Sarah still thought of as their first alien contact, rang out with crystalline clarity. Order, they commanded, their form shifting through various colors of authority. Dr. Chen, please elaborate on your analysis. Sarah gestured, and the holographic display zoomed in on a particular section of data. The void swimmers aren't just mindless cosmic entities as previously believed. They're responding to changes in our detection methods, adapting their approach vectors to avoid our observation posts. That suggests not only intelligence but an understanding of our technology that should be impossible for entities that supposedly predate the precursors themselves. In the ensuing silence, Dr. Maya Patel stepped forward from the human delegation. Her unauthorized experiments on Mars had earned her both acclaim and suspicion from the galactic community, but no one could deny her insights into the artifact's deeper mysteries. We believe, Maya began, her voice carrying the weight of countless sleepless nights spent analyzing data, that the void swimmers are actually ancient vessels, possibly even precursor technology, repurposed for some unknown function. The chamber's crystalline walls darkened with the collective shock of its occupants. Sarah watched as Maya pulled up additional data streams, showing the complex patterns they'd discovered hidden within the void swimmers' quantum signatures. Look at these command structures, Maya continued. They're degraded, yes, but they follow the same basic architecture we found in the Mars artifact. These aren't natural phenomena. They're machines, ancient, powerful, and currently operating far outside their original parameters. High Counselor Zarek's form pulsed with what Sarah had learned to recognize as deep concern. If what you say is true, then the situation is far graver than we imagined. The precursor's technology was capable of restructuring reality itself. If these entities are indeed their vessels, operating without proper control, they could tear the galaxy apart. Sarah finished. Which is why we need to act now, not debate protocols that were outdated before our species learned to make fire. Another wave of protests swept through the chamber, but Sarah noticed something different this time. Undertones of fear mixing with the usual dismissal. They were starting to believe. Ambassador Kittle's crystalline form approached the center of the chamber. The human's evidence is compelling, but the convergence protocol is clear. All major defensive actions must be approved by a unanimous vote of the Council. We cannot simply. We don't have time for a unanimous vote, Maya interrupted, earning gasps from several species who considered interruption a form of violence. The Void Swimmers will reach the Carina Nebula's edge in less than 6 standard months. Once they breach that barrier, they'll have access to the most densely populated sector of the galaxy. Sarah activated another holographic display, this one showing population distributions across the threatened sectors. That's 18 trillion sapient beings in immediate danger, with another 50 trillion in adjacent sectors. We're not asking for permission to act. We're offering you a chance to work with us before we act on our own. The chamber went absolutely still. Even the energy beings ceased their usual quantum fluctuations. In the 6 months since first contact, humanity had carefully played the role of the humble newcomer, eager to learn from their galactic seniors. This was the first time they'd shown their teeth. High Counselor Zarak moved to the chamber center, their crystalline form reflecting the gravity of the moment. Dr. Chen, are you suggesting that Earth would act unilaterally against the Void Swimmers? We're suggesting, Sarah replied, meeting their gaze steadily, that we already are. With a gesture, she brought up one final display, a massive construction project taking place in secret at the edge of human space. Quantum forges larger than planets were assembling something that made several council members withdraw their sensory apparatus in horror. By the first light, Ambassador Kittle whispered, their crystalline form clouding with disbelief. You're building a trap, a quantum snare large enough to catch stars. No, Maya corrected, her voice carrying the hint of pride. We're building something much worse. We're going to capture them, study them, and find out what they're running from. The chamber erupted into chaos. Several species began emergency evacuation procedures, while others demanded immediate sanctions against Earth. But Sarah noticed that some, particularly the younger species, were watching the humans with something approaching admiration. High Counselor Zarak raised all their appendages, demanding silence. When calm finally returned, they addressed the chamber with the full authority of their position. The humans have forced our hand, they declared. We can either work with them to shape this intervention, or we can watch as they proceed alone, possibly endangering the entire galaxy in their reckless pursuit of knowledge. Sarah stepped forward once more. There's another option. Work with us. Add your knowledge to ours. Help us refine our approach. Because with or without your help, we're going to solve this mystery. The only question is whether we do it as a united galaxy, or as the same fractious collection of civilizations that failed to stop the Void Swimmers the first time. The chamber's crystalline walls began to pulse with patterns that Sarah's translator couldn't interpret. Species that hadn't spoken to each other in millennia were suddenly engaged in rapid communication. The human delegation watched as the galaxy's oldest civilizations grappled with a fundamental shift in their understanding of both humanity and their own place in the cosmos. Finally, High Counselor Zarak spoke again. The Council will recess for 1 standard day to consider the humans' proposal. But know this, whatever we decide, nothing will ever be the same after today. As the chamber began to empty, Sarah caught Maya's eye and saw her own mix of excitement and terror reflected there. They had just changed the course of galactic history, and they both knew that the real challenges were only beginning. The quantum snare continued its construction in the void of space, its massive structure a testament to humanity's refusal to accept the impossible. Soon, they would either save the galaxy or tear it apart trying. And somehow, that felt exactly right. The architecture of war. The quantum forge hung in space like a metallic spider web, its vast strands stretching across an area larger than Earth's solar system. Dr. Maya Patel stood at the observation deck of the command station, watching as automated constructors wove impossible geometries into the fabric of space-time itself. Beautiful, isn't it? Dr. James Morrison appeared beside her, his silver hair floating gently in the station's low gravity. Terrible, but beautiful. Maya nodded, her eyes fixed on the latest section being assembled. Did you ever think, back in that lab on Mars, that we'd end up building something like this? A trap big enough to catch gods? James chuckled darkly. Not in my wildest dreams. Speaking of which, the latest simulations are ready. They moved to the holographic display at the center of the deck. The station's AI brought up a complex model showing the predicted behavior of their quantum snare when activated. Streams of data flowed around them in 3 dimensions, describing physics that most of humanity hadn't even known existed a year ago. The Council's scientists are still arguing that this is impossible, Maya said, manipulating the display to focus on a particular set of equations. They say we can't possibly control this much quantum entanglement without triggering a cascade failure. The Council scientists have spent too long thinking inside the box, James replied. He gestured, and the display shifted to show the modified precursor code they'd extracted from the Mars artifact. Look here. They always assumed these patterns were meant to be read linearly, like a traditional program. But if you treat them as 4-dimensional fractals, the code rewrites itself based on observer effect. Maya finished. Yeah, I know. That's what got me in trouble with the safety protocols back on Mars. She paused, studying a particular sequence. James, look at this. The pattern recognition algorithms are picking up something new. They leaned in together, watching as the AI highlighted a recurring sequence in the precursor code. It was subtle, so subtle that it had escaped notice until now, hidden in the quantum fluctuations between the main command structures. That's not possible, James whispered. That's a signature, a maker's mark. Maya's fingers flew over the holographic controls, isolating the sequence and running it through their full analysis suite. Not just a signature, it's a message. The precursors left us instructions. The observation deck's doors slid open, admitting High Counselor Zarak. Their crystalline form reflected the holographic displays, creating a cascade of light that made them almost painful to look at. We detected a spike in your research parameters, Zarak said, moving to join them at the display. Have you found something? Maya and James exchanged a look. Over the past months, they'd developed a complex relationship with the High Counselor, part mentor, part supervisor, part confused parent trying to understand why their child insisted on playing with fusion reactors. The precursors didn't just leave us their technology, Maya explained, highlighting the hidden message. They left us a warning. The code we've been studying, the one we used to design the quantum snare, it's not their ultimate achievement. It's their last resort. The display shifted, showing the translation of the ancient message. As the words appeared, Zarak's form clouded with what humans had learned to recognize as deep distress. To those who follow, James read aloud, "We offer our apologies along with our legacy. What you have found is not a gift, but a burden. The swimmers are not the enemy. They are the last wall between existence and the void. In our pride, we sought to improve upon their design. We failed. If you have found this message, then our failure is complete, and the wall is failing. Do not repeat our mistakes. Do not attempt to control that which was meant to swim free." Silence fell over the observation deck. Outside, the quantum forge continued its work, unaware that its entire purpose had just been called into question. "We have to shut it down," Zarak said finally. "The project, the forge, all of it. If the precursors themselves couldn't control these forces." "No," Maya interrupted. "We need to speed up." Both James and Zarak turned to stare at her. She was already working at the controls, pulling up new models and simulations. "Think about it," she continued. "The precursors tried to improve the void swimmers, to exert control over them. That was their mistake. But we're not trying to control them. We're trying to talk to them. The quantum snare," James began, "isn't a trap," Maya finished. "Or at least it doesn't have to be. We've been so focused on containing the void swimmers that we never considered the possibility that we're building something else entirely. Look at the base structure of our design. She manipulated the display, stripping away layers of complexity to reveal the fundamental architecture of their massive construction. As the extraneous elements fell away, a pattern emerged that made James catch his breath. "It's a resonance chamber," he said. "We're not building a cage. We're building an instrument." Zarak's form shifted through several colors rapidly. "Explain." Maya's fingers danced over the controls, bringing up comparative analyses. The void swimmers communicate through quantum fluctuations in spacetime itself. We assumed they were weapons or monsters because we couldn't understand their language. But look at the patterns. They're not random. They're not even degraded. They're music. The display filled with waveforms, showing the complex harmonies hidden within the void swimmers' quantum signatures. When overlaid with the structure they were building, the resonance was undeniable. "The precursors tried to control them," Maya said softly. "We're going to sing to them instead." James was already running new simulations, his expression intense. "If we reconfigure the quantum matrices, adjust the entanglement frequencies, Maya, this could work. We could establish communication without trying to contain them. Or we could tear a hole in the fabric of reality," Zarak pointed out. "The energies involved in this kind of quantum manipulation are beyond anything even the precursors attempted." "That's because the precursors tried to do it alone," Maya replied. She pulled up another display, showing the combined fleet gathered at the edge of human space. Ships from every major civilization in the galaxy, each contributing their own unique technologies and understanding to the project. "We're not alone. We have the combined knowledge of 300 species, plus everything we've learned from the artifact." Outside, the quantum forge continued its work, but now they could see it differently. What had looked like a web of impossible mathematics was revealing itself as something far more beautiful and far more dangerous. "The Council will never approve this modification," Zarak said, but their tone suggested they weren't entirely opposed to the idea. "The Council approved the construction of a weapon that could have destroyed half the galaxy," James pointed out. "Maybe they'll be more receptive to a musical instrument." Maya was already drafting new specifications, her mind racing with possibilities. "We'll need to reconfigure the entire resonance matrix. The primary conductors will have to be completely rebuilt. But if we're right about this..." "If you're right about this," Zarak interrupted, "you'll have achieved something not even the precursors could manage. If you're wrong." "If we're wrong," Maya finished, "then at least we failed trying to communicate rather than control." She looked up at the vast construction outside. "Sometimes the architecture of war can become something else entirely. We just have to be brave enough to try." The quantum forge's light played across the observation deck, casting strange shadows that seemed to dance to an unheard rhythm. Soon, they would know if their gamble would pay off, if humanity's greatest weapon could become its greatest instrument of peace. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what song they would play to the ancient guardians of reality itself. Echoes of yesterday. The first note played across the quantum frequencies shook every sensor in the galaxy. Dr. Sarah Chen watched from the primary control center as waves of resonance rippled through spacetime itself, the massive quantum forge transforming from a weapon into the largest musical instrument ever conceived. "Primary harmonics stable." Maya's voice came through the comm system. "Secondary resonance chambers responding. We're actually doing this." Sarah checked the readings flooding her displays. Every civilization in the galaxy had representatives monitoring the experiment, their various sensor systems contributing to a comprehensive view of what they were attempting. The void swimmers were still approaching, their massive forms distorting space around them. "They're responding," James reported from his station. "The quantum signatures are shifting. They're listening." The combined fleet hung back at a safe distance, thousands of ships representing hundreds of species, all watching as humanity attempted to communicate with entities that had terrified the galaxy for millions of years. The quantum forge's vast structure pulsed with energy as it translated mathematical sequences into multidimensional harmonies. Getting some strange readings from the outer resonance bands, one of the Melodixian scientists reported, their plasma form flickering with concern. The harmonic patterns are becoming more complex than our models predicted. Sarah leaned forward, studying the new data. The void swimmers weren't just listening. They were responding. Their quantum signatures were changing, adopting rhythms that matched and then built upon the patterns being broadcast by the forge. "This is it," Maya breathed. "We're actually talking to them." The excitement in the control center was palpable. Centuries of mystery were about to be unraveled. The void swimmers, those ancient guardians that had terrified civilizations since before humanity learned to make fire, were finally going to reveal their secrets. Then everything went wrong. The quantum harmonics suddenly shifted, the carefully orchestrated patterns dissolving into chaos. The void swimmers' response changed from harmonious interaction to what could only be described as screaming. "Something's happening," James shouted over the comm. "The resonance chambers are picking up new frequencies. Something's coming through." The space between the quantum forge and the void swimmers began to twist, reality itself seeming to fold and unfold like origami in the hands of a mad god. Sarah's displays filled with warnings as sensor systems across the galaxy detected something unprecedented. By the first light, High Counselor Zarak whispered, their crystalline form clouding with terror, "What have we done?" The void swimmers were changing. Their massive forms, once smooth and mysterious, were unfolding to reveal structures within structures, ancient machinery awakening from eons of sleep. But they weren't attacking. They were retreating. New quantum signatures detected, the Melodixian scientist announced, their plasma form pulsing with agitation. They're coming from behind the swimmers. Sarah's blood ran cold as she realized what they were seeing. The void swimmers weren't running from the galaxy. They were running from something else. And now, thanks to humanity's attempt at communication, that something had found a way through. "Full emergency shutdown," she ordered. "Cut power to all resonance chambers. Stop the transmission." But it was too late. The space between galaxies, that vast dark ocean that had always been empty, began to fill with light. Not the light of stars or ships or any known phenomenon, but something older, something that had been waiting. "Message incoming," Maya reported, her voice shaking. It's using our own quantum frequencies, translating now." The message appeared on every display in the control center, in every language simultaneously. "The wall is broken. We remember. We return." "The void swimmers," James said, understanding dawning in his voice. They weren't just ancient ships. They were a containment system, a quarantine line. Sarah watched in horror as more signals began appearing in the void. The swimmers had maintained their patrol for millions of years, keeping something imprisoned in the space between galaxies. Now that prison was opening. "Emergency council session," Zarak announced, their form pulsing with urgent patterns. "All species must be informed. The precursor's last defense has failed." The quantum forge's structure began to vibrate as space itself warped around it. The combined fleet started emergency withdrawal procedures, ships jumping to faster-than-light travel in carefully coordinated waves. But Sarah noticed something strange about the retreat. "The swimmers," she said, pointing to her display. "Look at their movement patterns." Maya and James crowded around her station. The ancient vessels weren't just retreating. They were reforming their line, taking up new positions, and they were doing it in response to signals from the quantum forge. "They're not running," Maya realized. "They're regrouping. The forge isn't just communicating with them. It's integrating with their control systems. We accidentally built a command and control center for a million-year-old defense network." "Can we use it?" James asked. "Can we help them fight whatever's coming through?" Sarah studied the patterns emerging in the data. The void swimmers' original purpose was becoming clear. They were never meant to be weapons or monsters. They were guardians, protecting all life in the galaxy from something the precursors had faced and failed to defeat conventionally. "We need to understand what we're dealing with first," she said. "Maya, can you clean up that signal? I want to know exactly what's trying to break through." The displays filled with new data as Maya refined their sensors. The entity emerging from the void between galaxies wasn't a fleet or an army. It was something far worse, a consciousness spread across multiple dimensions, an intelligence that had evolved beyond the need for physical form. The precursors didn't fail to improve the swimmers, Sarah realized. They succeeded too well. They created something that transcended physical reality itself, but they couldn't control it. So they built the swimmers to contain it, to keep it from consuming all of normal space. "And now we've given it a way back in," James added grimly. The control center fell silent as the implications sank in. They had tried to prevent one threat only to unleash something far worse. But as Sarah watched the void swimmers reforming their battle line, she saw something else, an opportunity. "We didn't just build a command center," she said slowly. "We built something the precursors never had. A way to work with the swimmers instead of trying to control them." Maya's eyes widened as she understood. The quantum resonance patterns. We could coordinate with them," Sarah finished, "not as masters, but as allies." Outside, the void continued to fill with impossible light as an ancient evil stirred from its prison. But humanity had done something unprecedented. They had turned an act of war into an opportunity for collaboration. Now they just had to hope it would be enough to face what was coming. The galaxy's greatest threat had awakened, but so had its oldest guardians. And this time, they wouldn't face it alone. The silent victory. The galaxy burned with impossible light. Dr. Maya Patel stood at her station in the Quantum Forge's control center, watching as reality itself twisted under the assault of something that should never have been freed. The entity that the precursors had imprisoned, what the combined fleet now called the Transcendent, was testing its boundaries, probing the limits of normal space. "Status report." Sarah's voice cut through the chaos of multiple species coordinating defense efforts. "The swimmers are responding to our harmonic signals," Maya reported, her fingers dancing over the controls. "We've established stable quantum links with 87% of their fleet. The rest are adapting." The massive view screens showed the void swimmers moving in perfect synchronization, their ancient forms now clearly visible as the most sophisticated vessels ever created. What had once seemed like smooth, featureless surfaces were now revealed to be layers upon layers of reality-warping technology. "The Melidaxian consciousness matrix is online," James reported from his station. "Their plasma-based computing systems are handling the quantum calculations faster than anything we've ever seen." High Counselor Zarek's crystalline form pulsed with urgent patterns as they coordinated with the Council fleet. "The evacuation of the outer systems is proceeding, but we estimate only 60% of populated worlds can be cleared before the Transcendent fully manifests." Maya watched as another section of space twisted and burned, normal physics giving way to something else entirely. The Transcendent wasn't just entering their reality. It was trying to overwrite it, to remake the galaxy according to its own impossible geometries. "We need to stop thinking of this as a military problem," she said suddenly, her mind racing with new possibilities. "We're not fighting a war. We're dealing with an infection of reality itself." Sarah turned to her, understanding dawning in her eyes. "The Quantum Forge isn't just a communication device," Maya finished. "Look at the base harmonics we used to contact the swimmers. We weren't just talking to them. We were temporarily syncing our reality with theirs. What if we could do the opposite?" James was already running calculations. "You want to use the forge to strengthen normal space. Create a kind of reality antibody." "The precursors tried to fight the Transcendent directly," Maya explained, pulling up new models on the main display. "That's why they failed. But we got something they never had. A galaxy full of different perspectives on what reality should be." The control center erupted into activity as the implications became clear. Representatives from hundreds of species began contributing their unique understanding of physics, consciousness, and reality itself. The Melidaxians offered their expertise in plasma-based computing. The Silicon Collective provided new insights into crystalline information storage, and even the energy beings of the Helios cluster contributed their strange, non-linear mathematics. It could work, Zarak said, their form shifting through analytical patterns. But the power requirements would be enormous. We'd need every ship in the combined fleet to channel energy into the forge. Not just ships, Sarah added. We'd need every civilization to participate. Every quantum-capable device in the galaxy would have to be part of the network. Maya's fingers flew over the controls as she refined the concept. We're not trying to destroy the transcendent. We're trying to remind reality what it's supposed to be, like a cosmic immune system. Outside, the void swimmers continued their dance, maintaining their line against the encroaching chaos. But now, they were moving differently, responding to the new harmonics being generated by the forge. They weren't just defending. They were resonating, amplifying the natural frequencies of space-time itself. Message from the Council, Zarak announced. They've approved the plan. All civilizations are pledging their full support. Sarah took a deep breath. How long until we can implement? The base calculations are done, James reported. Maya's models are solid. We just need to coordinate the power transfer, and he never finished the sentence. A massive surge of energy rippled through normal space as the Transcendent made its first direct attack. The quantum forge shuddered, its vast structure flexing under forces it was never designed to withstand. It knows what we're trying to do, Maya realized. It's trying to stop us before we can begin. But something unexpected happened. As the Transcendent's energy reached for the forge, the void swimmers moved as one, interposing themselves between the attack and the structure. Their ancient hulls absorbed the impossible energies, channeling them through their own systems and converting them into something else. They're not just defending us, James said in awe. They're showing us how to do it. Look at the conversion patterns. Maya's displays filled with new data as the swimmers demonstrated exactly how to transmute the Transcendent's reality-warping energies into something that could strengthen normal space. It was elegant, beautiful, and exactly what they needed. All ships, all stations, Sarah broadcast across all frequencies. Begin power transfer now. Follow the swimmers' harmonic patterns exactly. We're not fighting the impossible. We're reinforcing the possible. Across the galaxy, every quantum-capable device, every ship's engine, every power plant and energy core began channeling power into the network. The forge's resonance chambers filled with energy as civilization after civilization added their strength to the effort. The Transcendent's light burned brighter, its assault on reality intensifying as it recognized the threat. But now the galaxy was ready. The forge's quantum harmonics reached out across space and time, carrying with it the combined will of hundreds of species, all focused on a single goal, the preservation of their shared reality. Where the Transcendent tried to twist space, the combined resonance straightened it. Where it attempted to overwrite the laws of physics, the harmonics reinforced them. It was like watching an immune system activate on a cosmic scale, reality itself rising to defend against an infection of unreality. The void swimmers led the defense, their ancient forms glowing with power as they demonstrated what they had been designed to do. Not to fight the Transcendent, but to maintain the integrity of normal space itself. And now, with the help of every spacefaring civilization, they could do more than just contain the threat. It's working, Maya whispered as her displays showed the Transcendent's influence beginning to wane. We're not just pushing it back, we're teaching the galaxy how to reject it naturally. The light of the Transcendent began to fade, its attempt to manifest in normal space being countered by the combined will of an entire galaxy. But it wasn't a battle won through weapons or warfare. It was a victory achieved through cooperation, through the sharing of knowledge and perspective. As the threat receded, Maya noticed something else in her readings. The quantum forge wasn't just channeling power anymore. It was becoming something new. The combined knowledge and effort of hundreds of species had transformed it into something the precursors could never have imagined. A tool for maintaining the health of reality itself. The swimmers are integrating, James reported. They're making themselves part of the network permanently. They're teaching it how to maintain the barriers naturally. Sarah smiled. They're making sure we don't need them anymore. They're giving us the tools to protect ourselves. The final surge of power washed through the network, and the transcendent was pushed back beyond the boundaries of normal space. But this time, it wasn't just locked away. The very fabric of reality had been strengthened against its influence, making its return impossible. As the light faded and normal space reasserted itself, Maya looked at her displays one last time. The void swimmers were changing again, their forms becoming more translucent, more energy than matter. They had completed their mission, and now they were becoming part of the galaxy's new immune system, not as guardians, but as teachers. Message from the Council. Zarak announced, their form glowing with what could only be described as joy. They're calling it the silent victory. The day we saved the galaxy not through warfare, but through harmony. Maya watched as the combined fleet began to disperse, ships returning to their home systems. But they were leaving behind something unprecedented. A galaxy-wide network of cooperation and shared knowledge. The quantum forge would remain as a symbol of what could be achieved when different perspectives came together. You know what this means, Sarah said quietly. We're not just part of galactic society anymore. We helped change it forever. Maya nodded, thinking of that first discovery on Mars that had started everything. They had found an artifact and built a weapon, only to transform it into something else entirely. A bridge between civilizations, a tool for harmony rather than destruction. The silent victory, they would later say, wasn't just about saving the galaxy. It was about proving that the greatest achievements don't come from domination or control, but from the willingness to learn, to adapt, and to work together towards something greater than any single species could achieve alone. And somewhere in the quantum frequencies, the song of the void swimmers could still be heard, teaching the galaxy how to maintain its own peace, one harmonic at a time.